It's a week of, even before the shooting, I think it's a complex week coming up holiday-wise. Of course, about Thanksgiving and how, the whole mythology of it and how it has been shifted from taking of lands and appropriation, and of course, issues about killing lots of animals. I think 44 million turkeys are killed in this week or for Thanksgiving. So there are a lot of layers, which I've talked about in other talks, so I'm not going to go into them today. And it's just, I think, a time of a lot of family and gatherings. So I thought it was a good time to talk about, I'm calling this Home for the Holidays. Let's see, Liz. Okay. All right. So I think holidays are, again, difficult times. Many of us go home, be it chosen family kind of home or biological home or adoptive home or whatever your format of home is. And with it comes a lot of expectations and a lot of conditioned, habitual ways of being, wouldn't you say? And so it's a tense time often. And so I wanted to talk about how we can be with that. First, I will say that I think one of the intention of Buddhism is that we are practicing to come home to ourselves, to our experience, to this moment. And on Zoom, we're in Bruce's art home, but many of you are in your actual home. So, we, in a way, we come home every time we join together on Monday nights, literally, for many of us, and as a sense of practice. And there, as we could hear in the check-ins, there's a sense of access to Zen as a haven for many of us, as a refuge, as a place in which we come that is like a home that provides us with connection, a sense of being seen and heard, appreciated, valued, or I certainly would hope for. Because sangha is remember that the main aim of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the Sangha is harmony. It's very much about the community and how is it that we establish a sense of harmony with each other, which doesn't mean that when there's disharmony, it's a bad thing. It's just, this is the intention. How is it that we feel resonance, harmonize with each other, which, as we know, is always arising, co-arising, and we make this together. And so all your presence, our presence, is part of that. And then that sounds nice, and I've just told you guys that's what I think of it, and some of you are going, yeah. But and how do we know that, right? How do we practically know that? And so much of practice is to know that. And the very most sense of it is presence. So zazen means just sitting. What are we sitting with? We're sitting, with things as they are. We're sitting with presence. And in Zen in particular, how do we know presence? By our posture, by the body, coming into the body, resting in the body, being with the body as it is. And there is a quality of meeting it and of not necessarily, I'm not with my body because I have to, or, it's bad or it's good. Just, where is it? It doesn't mean that when those thoughts come up or those ideas come up, they're bad. It's just that we're practicing to be with what is here, and that is presence. And we know that very much in the body. So we need to be able to focus our attention and our awareness to know how to know the practicalness of our aspiration or of our intention, right? So if you want to be, okay, I want to be home or I want to be present, then how are you going to do that? And coming into the body is, as many of you heard me say, the first foundation of mindfulness is awareness of the body in the body. Like you have to know we're in this body, right? And the active posture and breath is part of the body. Then we also have to know our emotion and our thoughts. Right? And so how do we practice observing that? But first, I forgot. I have this quote. So the practice is on the cushion, and in Zen, I will say that it is the body, the posture. And Suzuki Roshi said in a talk called Correct Zazen is your home. Even though many of you are young, so this is in 68, so he's talking to all the young hippies who have come to practice with him. Even though many of you are young enough to cope with the busy life, when you learn where you are and what you are doing, the difference will be great. Zazen can lead you to this position, this home. Correct Zazen is your home. It is where you come from and where you will go when you die. When you have a home and know where your home is, your problems have a place to go. And when they are not problems, and then they are not problems anymore. The only problem is when your problems have no place to go. That is why we suffer. We come out from Buddha and we go back to Buddha nature. Your life is not so long, actually. It's very important for us to know where we are and in what direction we are exerting effort. To know our position, we must be at one with the whole universe. So yes, there is a way to be with the body so that it's a place where your problem has a place to go. And how does your problem have a place to go? It's not that okay, I have a problem, how am I going to fix it? And in Zazen, it's a better fix it than when I'm, at work. Though some of us have tried that without a doubt, right? So part of it is just to be with it as it is. We're practicing to very practically know how to be with our life as it is. That's how we're home. If sadness is in your home, being with sadness. If happiness is here, be with happiness, right? And by that, I don't mean that, you have to be with it or else you're not home. One way to arrive home is there a way that we can be with it that has a sense of settledness, has a sense of attending to it, right? And part of that is to notice how we habitually are with, be it emotion, sensation, or thoughts. So that we can see in that habitual pattern, are we attending to it or are we pushing ourselves away from it? Right? And this is why our practice is really, you can go on any retreat. It's just an intense container of the same thing that we're practicing every time we do Zazen. Is how can I be with things as they are right now? The greatness of a retreat is that you don't have to worry about what you're going to eat after you get up or, what you're going to do next because you're supposed to walk or you're supposed to go eat or you're supposed to do whatever the schedule is. And most of the periods of meditation is learning to be with what is. What we let go is we actually find where do we have resistance to what is. Where is it that I'm not being with the hurt that's in the middle of my back? Am I going, oh, I have to sit up straight because everyone else is sitting up straight? Which, it's okay as a thought, but is it to the point where you're like holding yourself rigid to try to fit in some idea of, right? And part of it is practicing knowing when at that point that you say, okay, there is something to sitting still, I've heard, I've tried it, and now I'm going to move. And then am I moving it with awareness, or I'm moving it with anger, or moving it with defeatedness? And even that is not wrong. That's just, if you have awareness, that's even better, that you understand what your reaction to your habits are. So this is why in some ways retreat is all about managing, noticing how you tend to manage and how you enforce the way you think things should be managed to the point that it actually brings more suffering. Because that's what we're doing all the time. And so it's just a container for us to see it more clearly, because we're slower and there's quiet and you're just doing one thing at a time. So the other way then, and it's very much part of Zen, is that we know where we are and what we're doing through rituals. And you guys have heard me say that. What you might have heard, though I probably have said it, but perhaps not, is that Zazen is a ritual. Right? That's partly, and how do we, what is a ritual? What is a ritual? Awake people, there's a whole month. What is a ritual? Ryogen, what's a ritual?
I don't even understand the question. What is the ritual?
Take a stab. What is a ritual for you?
It's an anchor in my day-to-day life.
Okay. Okay, then what's a ritual?
An act that takes on significance beyond the act.
Beyond the act, is that what you said?
Yeah, beyond the act itself.
Mm-hmm. And what is, okay, beyond the act itself, okay. Anyone else? I could ask all of you, but do you want me to? Probably not. But anyone else want to say anything?
I don't know, I guess a repeated, a repeated action that is of importance to one.
Okay, did you hear that? Barbara saying a repeated action of importance.
I was going to say a repeated action or ceremony that honors.
A repeated action or ceremony that honors. What's the difference between a ceremony and a ritual? I'm just asking. Okay, not much.
I mean,
okay.
I think rituals are more, more often maybe, or something that's.
Rituals more often maybe?
Or it's more repetitive.
More repetitive. Okay.
Planned.
Okay. I think there are different ways we can talk about ritual, for sure. I'll offer you one tonight. Okay. To practice being present is a ritual. How are you practicing to be present is the container of a ritual. So you've heard the Zen adage, right? Chop wood, carry water. That's about as practical of life as you can. Right? There's a sense of it that that's just the bare minimum. You chop wood, so you have heat, you carry water so you can, cook, right? So, and the adage means that that's a sacredness to it. And what makes it sacred? That has some meaning for us. I think that can be it. Like when there's a funeral ritual, it gives us a meaning, it gives us a container. A ritual holds what you're doing in a way that brings presence to it. It can have an intentional presence, right? To stay with the sadness, to honor someone's death, to mark, right, what is happening. When you go to Zazen, part of that bowing is you're going, I am going to sit down here in this seat, then you turn around here, I'm just going to sit down here with you all in the Zendo, and all beings that have ever sat here, right? And what are we doing? We're doing the ritual of awakening. And how do we do that? There's, in Zen we have a whole thing. You feel your sitting bones, you tie your robe loosely, the whole Fukanza Zengi. That's basically what we're doing as a ritual for Zazen. So in part, we practice, and in Zen in particular, we're told instructions for ritual because it supports 3 ways of presence. One is it makes you pause. A ritual has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So, and stopping to listen to the instruction, to really listen, asks you to pause or to stop. Whatever you're doing, right? In Zazen, in a way, you think, I thought about the talk. Then in that moment in which I go, okay, back to the sitting bone or the breath, that's again, I'm coming back to my marker of awakening. So the points in which in Zazen instruction, you're given posture points are where you can pay attention so that you can keep on holding it as a ritual of awakening. So that this is awakening. This is awakening. I mean, you're awake all the time, by the way, right? It's not like later we're not awake more when we were meditating 30 minutes ago than now. But you had more of a sense of it because stillness is part of the container. Silence is part of the container. Focusing awareness is part of the container. Resting in awareness is part of the container. So there are different ways, and it's useful to know, and that very, very practical way to help us have a sense of what's important to us. And for us, being present or presence is what we have deemed as important in life. There are other people who say, well, life is, owning a yacht. Life is climbing that mountain. Life is, but then I'm not saying it's wrong, but the us in this space right now, we're saying life is being present, or at least I'm telling you that's what we're doing. You could disagree with me, right? And rituals help us. So now you may think, but I go home, my parents don't even know I'm a Buddhist. Or my parents, think I'm in a cult or whatever. Probably not these days, but And there are lots of rituals at home. When you go home, besides our home every day, brushing your teeth is a ritual. Or could it be a ritual? How many of you are aware of brushing your teeth? The whole time, by the way, not just like, I'm mostly like in the beginning, next thing I know, I'm spitting, and then it's like, whoa. It's called brushing my teeth, right? And in holidays, setting the table is a ritual. My mother always had, we bring out the white lace, one that my grandmother crocheted. We try to figure out which side has the least stain from all the wine spills and gravy spills, right? Then, I was set with bringing out the nice china, right? Small fork on the outside, the big fork, the salad fork goes on the outside. The knife, the blade faces in. The spoon goes on the outside. What is it that go on top? I haven't set a formal table since my mother died, probably, right? What, your coffee spoon, if you had oyster spoons or something, forks or something? Yeah.
Soup spoon.
I can't remember. Does the wine glass, is the water glass go on the outside of the wine glass on the right? Because somehow we're all supposed to be right-handed. But that's the formal. Oh yeah, you know, when you watch Downton Abbey, right? They have the little measuring tape and everything for like that's like high ritual. But there's lots of ritual. Or lighting candles for certain holidays. Those are rituals. But everything can be a ritual. And what is a ritual?
Getting up
I mean,
making breakfast.
Yeah, making breakfast. Some people celebrate Christmas Eve, some in the morning. So, but it's a ritual of being together. It's a ritual of, you know, again, it could be understood, but if nothing else, it's a time that we're together. Right? So it helps us then to know where we are and what we are doing. That's another way you could say what a ritual is. But it does it marks something important. In a way, in Zen in particular, we're saying to you, can every moment of your life be sacred? It marks, it has meaning. What does it mark? It marks some kind of meaning. Is it only when I offer incense? Is it only when I sit down and do the ritual zazen? Or is it when I get up from zazen? I'm marking, taking this into life. That's what kinhin is, right? Walking zazen. So we're practicing that so that we can remember to keep taking it into life. And part of the practice of ritual is actually, so first we pause to hear the instruction and to start the ritual and to do the things that are part of the instruction of doing the ritual, right? Like gasho, right? Put these two hands together, fist away, tip here is just where my nose would be. When I bow, I hold the shape of the arms, right? So all that are instruction, and part of it is we're observing what are our responses or versus our reactions, right? Do I go, mine is so good compared to them. Oh, that's right, I'm a form queen. Or shit, I forgot to put my elbows up, right? What a bad Zen teacher I am, right? Or, you know, whatever else comes up. I'm good, I'm bad, they're good, they're bad. And all the things that come with it. The emotions, the shame, the blame, whatever it is. So it's also to help us, rituals help us observe the arising of ego or othering or selfing, as I put it, right? Could be my selfing or selfing you or selfing them. Even in a way, you could even say selfing situation, right? We have this sense, right? This Zendo doesn't know what they're doing compared to that Zendo, right? So, and by that, it isn't necessarily bad. It's just unique. Part of it is a chance for us to observe how the beliefs of our thoughts bring either more suffering or more connection. Or are we living by our aspiration? If, let's say, my aspiration when I go home is to be kind, right? And, you know, I have a relative who will talk about themselves over and over. What is a kind way to respond to that? As opposed to my habitual thing, which is walk out of the room or turn and talk to someone else. So how do I, and I think it's worth thinking about, well, how can I do this? And to think of it as a ritual. Oh, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to make eye contact because that helps me to be really present with this person. I'm going to try to dumb down my thoughts about what they're doing and just listen. I'm going to be kind by listening. And then I'm going to be kind to myself when I've listened enough. And maybe then I'm going to take a deep breath and say, it's been great talking to you. And then I leave. you know? So maybe it helps to think of it. How can I have a ritual of meeting something that's difficult? We're practicing to have a ritual of being present all the time, and that's the harder practice, to be perfectly honest, isn't it? And ritual can help us be present, to remember our presence when we're going into a difficult situation or when we find ourselves in difficult situation, overwhelming grief, or sadness, loss. Even joy can be overwhelming, especially if you haven't been used to joy. I mean, I was just talking to a friend about, I've known her forever, and we talk about our family all the time, and just talking about how, is there a way that, this family member that we kind of gotten to hear with being with them the way they are, right? Like, I don't want to do it anymore, right? My friend was saying like, well, people are like into family and blood having some relevance, but I don't think it's important anymore. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But for me, it has relevance. And is there a way that even though my frustration is up to here, for me, if this relationship is still important, is there a way that I can meet it so that I'm allowing that person to not follow my idea of that person, even though 99.9% of the time it's probably going to happen like that? Can I hold that? In a way, for me, someone is asking me, how can I have hope very recently? How can I have hope in the midst of all, like in response to the shooting? And for me, part of how we can have hope is we have to allow for the possibility that things can be different, that hatred will not be like this, and that we have to have trust and faith that I doing what I'm doing, my friends, at least in the sangha, or whoever else I have that I know, have similar values, or are willing to respond in the ways. And myself, I think the thing that I'm working on is, can I allow for what I think 99.99999% of the time is going to happen? Can I open myself to that tiny little bit of possibility that it will be different? That not only I'm going to be different with my difficulties, the things that bug me or the things that I do that bug other people, am I going to allow other people to also have that possibility? That's hard. Hope, people think, oh, if I have hope, everything would be more simple. I think hope is actually a very hard thing to really live with. And yet, it opens up possibility, right? And that's why we want to be inspired by hope, because the truth of hope is that it opens us to possibility, or that's my posit to you. So we pause, we observe patterns, we observe, by that I don't mean just bad patterns, good patterns too, or by that I mean pleasant or joyful or whatever that nourishes you also. And then we practice being with it as much as possible. And my word is resting in there. Right? Allowing, perhaps, is another word for it to be differently. Opening to possibility is a kind of presence. It's also can be a kind of observing. Can I observe my desire to shut down, and just walk away? Or can I observe the dis-ease of that, and then allow even myself the possibility that I can do this, or that, what, it will change. This like going, I don't like you, or I don't want to be here, but it could change. And rituals help us to remember our aspiration, our philosophy, whatever it is, our values. And I think that we forget that practical things help us. And this is why, to me, Zen is part of that, where we say this very normal thing of eating is a ritual. Is very, though, even though we set up a very unnormal way of eating, but the chewing and the swallowing is still normal, right? But we set up it so that it reminds us that we are being nourished, that we are interacting with others, we're being fed, with the giver, the receiver, and the gift. Right? These are the aspirations of Oryoki, right? And so very practical things can give us presence with sacredness or aspirations or spirituality or philosophy, whatever your word is, for the sense of something more than just me, myself, and I, or the tightness that we find ourselves in. Not that me, myself, I was wrong. I meant that as a tightness that I get into. All right, I'm going to read this poem from Jane Hirschfield, who practiced at Tassajara, a Buddhist poet, of course. Only when I am quiet and do not speak. Only when I am quiet for a long time and do not speak, do the objects of my life draw near. Shy, the scissors and spoons, the blue mug. Hesitant, even the towels, for all their intimate knowledge and scent of fresh bleach. How steady their regard as they ponder, dreaming and waking, the entrancement of my daily wonderings and tasks. Drunk on the honey of feelings and the honey of purpose, they seem to be thinking, a quiet judgment that glistens between the glass doorknobs. Yet, theirs is not the false reserve of a scarcely concealed ill will, nor that other active shining of pelted rocks. No, not that, for I hear the sigh of happiness each object gives off, if I glimpse for even an instant the actual instant, as if they believe it possible I might join their circle of simple, passionate thusness, their hidden rituals of luck and solitude, the joyous gap in them where appears in us the pronoun I. I think this is a paradox of being with ourselves fully, right? The presence of knowing this body, this heart, and this mind. When we rest in that, again, that's my word, whatever word works for you. And then the paradox is actually we're open to the connection because the I is settled. And so the you or the we or the us can be as it is, as opposed to the I impinging on what should be us or we. It's not separate from that. And when it has a sense of itself fully, a presence, then it's open to accepting possibilities that others' presence have resonance here, or is allowed here, is valued here, because that's honestly, that's what I would hope. In fact, you know, as many of you know, I'm not the most patient person. And probably, if you ever heard me talking to service people when something goes wrong, like my flight to Alaska just got totally changed without my knowing. Now, I did not call anyone, but I will tell you, Deb is like, no, you shouldn't call, because I'm not so good with people when I feel like they've been incompetent or something, you know? And I know that I'm that way. And then that moment, for just a moment, before, when I'm aware that I'm like that, is that moment in which I want them to accept me as frustrated. Isn't it? Right? I judge myself for being impatient, and yet all I want is to be understood about my impatience. That's what a good service person is to me. Someone who understands my frustration and then say, okay. You know, almost what they do afterwards doesn't matter. Of course, you know, I want to get what I want, but, and I know, having observed myself in that situation so many times, because it's very habitual, that I'm aware that it's that moment in which I judge myself is when I need to rest and accept that I'm being impatient, and I know that that's what I want from the other person. So imagine if you're going, and this is not easy, because I'm thinking about the person I've been talking about, right? Where they just talk about themselves. Can you imagine that in that moment when I'm aware of that, it doesn't matter. Right now I'm feeling full of possibilities. So what would it be if it doesn't matter whether they're self-aware or not, but knowing that that moment in which, if you had an awareness of yourself as centering yourself overly, that if someone could just meet that as, okay, they're centering themselves, maybe then I know, and when I'm seen and heard, then I don't need to be seen and heard. It's when I'm not seen and heard that I want you to see me and hear me. So in a way, rituals help us to say, oh, this is my intention, and this is how I can know it. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to make eye contact. I'm going to allow them to be seen and heard as fully as possible. And I'm going to allow, when I know I've had enough, and to say what my need is, which is, thank you for talking with me. Thank you for sharing yourself, whatever it is that is going to come up that feels connecting and authentic. Right? That's the thing. You set up ritual, but don't make it like, okay, if it doesn't work exactly like this, then, you know, then something is wrong. That's not a good ritual, right? It's just to help us hold the container of our intention, our motivation, our philosophy, our value, whatever it is you want to call it. And in doing so, we come home to ourselves and to the moment, which is really our true home. This moment as it is, allowing for it to be completely, which includes me, which includes myself, and all the conditions, everyone in the room, however the room is defined. Hey, thank you.